block of life is just complicated. We talk about simple life forms. There's nothing simple about DNA. This is complicated stuff that they figure tells us all kinds of things that we should be doing, our body should be doing. God, of course, created all this. God can look at space, don't care how many millions of light years across it is, and see the beginning and end of it. He can do that with time, too. But David couldn't. David never saw, of course, and this is obvious, our beautiful Golden Gate Bridge. The cars moving across at the skyline of San Francisco, which I think most of us agree is quite beautiful. Can you imagine what a shock it would have been for David to look at this? To be brought in 3,000 years up to our time and see this going on. This great bridge, what an engineering feat it would be. After the great initial shock, though, that he would have had, and there's no question there would have been a shock there, I think I can say this about David, knowing this much about him. That David would not have looked at the Golden Gate Bridge, at the skyline of San Francisco, and at the cars moving there, and said, well, they must have just happened. David wouldn't have said, there was no designer. It just came about. Of course, David had this to say about people who think that way. People who think that everything just evolved from nothing. In Psalm 14 and verse 1, he says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. David would certainly have understood that some intelligent being created that bridge. And it would only have been a short time before he figured out a human being did it. And the same for the cars. And the same for the skyscrapers. Paul would agree with David, because Paul tells us in Romans chapter 1 and verse 20 that there is no excuse for this foolishness. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. David didn't see the Golden Gate Bridge, but God foresaw the capability of man to build it. And David and Paul understood that when something is built, when something is created, there has to be a builder and there has to be a creator. What do we see when we look up at the sky at night? Are we, like David, filled with awe? The heavens declare, in other words, they speak. He goes on to say that, and depending on what version you have, that there is no speech, but yet they cry out with speech, saying, I was created. As he said in Psalm 8, the finger of God. I like to say the fingerprint of God is on everything in nature. In Jeremiah chapter 5, Jeremiah is rebuking Israel. And he says of the people of his day, now hear this, O foolish and senseless people, who have eyes but do not see, who have ears but do not hear. Do you not fear me, declares the Lord? Do you not tremble in my presence? Do we tremble in his presence? Do we recognize all around us the overwhelming volume of noise that says this was created by God? That life has purpose, that life has meaning. Are we moved, though we would never be as eloquent as Paul was in Romans chapter 11, to at least think along the lines of the words of Paul as he speaks of this God who created everything. Oh, the depth of the riches both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and unfathomable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who became his counselor? Or who has first given to him that it may be paid back to him again? For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen.